Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine and a third and final week at Montegray and Independent, the new wine bar in Bird Street in Stellenbosch. We've tried the Montegray wine, the label produced in small quantities by Michael and Rose Jordaan. Michael, the former PA to Paul Harris and now entrepreneur, and his wife Rose, the former Sports Illustrated swimsuit model who now lives on the Barton estate with her husband. And last week we had a look at some wine from Miles Mossop and from Rudy Schultz. And this week something really cool indeed. Not just the wine, the Hogan from Jocelyn Wilson, and then 2 bottles of Cap Classique, the Tanzanite, that's Melanie van der Merwe out in Robertson, and the Cap Classique from Barton, the estate that Michael and Rose own themselves, their Noble Savage, which may or may not be named after Michael. What's really cool is not just that it's awesome wine in a fabulous venue, but I'm going to try my hand at something I've always wanted to do, the art of sauvage, which is opening a bottle of champagne with a sword. And really, there is no better way to open champagne. I've never done it before. The consequences could be disastrous, but I'm game for something new, so I'm going to go and try it with these 2 bottles and see how my swordsmanship skills are. So this is really cool. This is a genuine proper sword. It was actually used by Michael Jordaan in his early days in the army, which was long enough back that they didn't have guns. What it's used for now, though, is for opening champagne. And in fact, Rose has a bottle for breakfast every morning, and so she uses this on a regular basis. I've seen this done out at Haute Cabrera a couple of times. Never tried it myself, but apparently it's really simple. So I'll take a bottle of the Brut Savage, the Noble Savage, from Barton, and what you have to do is you have to find the seam, so it's a bit like a cricket ball, and there's the seam there holding the glass together. And apparently it's really simple. You just run it along the bottle and give it a firm nudge, and it should all come flying off. Now, if you suddenly hear a scream and see blood, it means I've hit Stefanos, my director and cameraman, and if the yelp is slightly more feminine, then it is either Rose or Devet. Here goes nothing. 1, 2... I'm a natural. So there we go. That is how you open a bottle of bubbles on Dan Really Likes Wine. Never, ever am I going to do it the traditional way again. I'm investing in a sword, and this is the way forward. And just to show you that that wasn't a fluke, I have a second bottle. This is Melanie's bottle from Robertson. Back to my trusty sword, and again, it's just along the seam. Nice smooth action, kind of like a Roger Federer tennis stroke. And here we go. And if you heard that in the background, that was the sound of a champagne cork hitting a slightly surprised passerby. Tanzanite Brut, opened with a sword. This is turning into a very good Friday. So that, as you can see from the smile on my face, was enormously good fun. It really was. It's incredibly easy. And next time you are opening some Cap Classique and you happen to have a large sword handy, you know exactly how to get it open. So the fun of opening is done. There you can see the remainder of the top. Now on to the drinking part and tasting out the first of these 2 bubbles, which is the one from Barton, the Noble Savage. There is a beautiful deck on the estate. They've got a food barn and a view down over the Banhoek Valley. It's one of the more enchanting corners of Stellenbosch, and the wine they make is terrific. There have been a number of Platter 5-star winners over the last few years. This is a slightly more recent edition. I have had it before. I've liked it very much indeed, and now I shall like it even more, I'm sure, because I've opened it with a sword. And just what you'd want. It's crisp, it's fresh, it's zesty. There's that nice undercurrent of toast going through it, and it sits very pleasantly on the palate. It's a terrific bottle of bubbles, lovely Cap Classique, and a very worthy addition to the Barton stable. From one bubbles to the next, and this time Robertson, Melanie van der Merwe. This is all she makes. She worships the art of Cap Classique and the Tanzanite. It's her birthstone, and that's what she makes in the Robertson area. Now, if I'm looking slightly distracted, it's because part of me is looking forward to this, and part of me is wondering where on the internet I can find a sword so that I can order one and start opening Cap Classique with sauvage at home. But before I get onto the internet and do some searching, I want to try this out because I've heard a lot about it. I've heard about about Melanie and the bubbles that she makes with a great deal of passion, great deal of skill, and made their way into the Montegray and Independents wine bar, which is already no small accolade on the back of the first Cap Classique, which went down delightfully. I'm expecting more of the same. So that just roars straight up the nose. It's a beautiful, beautiful nose to this Cap Classique. The soil in the Robertson area, full of limestone. If you've been out to Divergent, you know they've got their limestone hill Chardonnay. The ground is very conducive to Chardonnay and in turn to Cap Classique. Melanie specialises in this. She clearly makes it brilliantly. This is awash with bubbles. It's a very lively Cap Classique, and it's beautiful, beautiful glass of South African bubbles, made all the more so by the splendid technique of opening it. After all the excitement of the Cap Classique, this is getting rather boring by comparison. I'm not allowed to use a sword to open this because apparently I've got a very good chance of severely injuring myself or somebody else nearby, and so I'll use a more conventional corkscrew for some wine made by Jocelyn Hogan Wilson. This is her Chenin Blanc, the first of two we'll try. Used to be the winemaker at La Brie, now with her own project, and a project that's found its way into Montegray and Independents. Now, there's some great history to this wine. Although Jocelyn might be making it fairly recently on her own, having left La Brie, the vines here are 4 decades old. Swartland old bush vines that have produced the grapes for this Chenin Blanc. And West Coast wine, very much the darling of the wine world at the moment, and some West Coast Chenin I've had of late has been magnificent. So the wine is certainly coming from territory that comes with a great deal of pedigree. Oh, there's something about a Chenin Blanc when it develops that old feel to it. Not necessarily an old wine. This is fairly recent. This is a 2016, so it's not old at all. But maybe it's the old vines coming through. But that honeyed feel, that it's got a sense of very warm, embracing gravitas to it. It's just really smooth, very slightly sweet, rounded feel. It gives it just a beautiful, plump depth to it. And Jocelyn Hogan Wilson has nailed that there. It's a West Coast Chenin to add to a fairly impressive list of West Coast wines that are making waves at the moment. And this is a Chenin Blanc that does those old vines great justice by producing a beautifully balanced and well-rounded wine. Love it. And so to the last of the wines from our Stellenbosch escape here at Montegray Independents, the little wine bar in Bird Street in Stellenbosch. And this is the Divergent, again from Jocelyn Hogan Wilson. And this is a red blend. It's a third apiece of Carignan, Cabernet Sauvignon and Cinsault. You might know the name Serge Hochard, Chateau Moussard in France. He was in South Africa about 4 years ago, gave a talk to the Swartland winemaking community, and it was that talk that inspired this particular blend. Originally it was going to be something different. Instead, it is what it has become, a third each of the Carignan, the Cabernet Sauvignon and the Cinsault, the Divergent by Jocelyn Hogan Wilson. I can safely say we've never had this blend before on Dan Really Likes Wine, and it'll probably be a while before we come close to anything similar again. The Cinsault and the Carignan very much cutting-edge styles at the moment, very hipsterish. Have your bespoke coffee and your craft beer, and then follow up with the Carignan and Cinsault. And then Cabernet Sauvignon, very much a regal, old-school grape. What on earth is it doing keeping this sort of company? It's the parent dropping off the cool kids who are asking to be left a kilometre short of school so they don't have to show up with mum and dad through the front gate. So coming together like this, it's unusual. But it's been inspired by a great French winemaker, and it's been reinterpreted here by a young South African winemaker who's got a great and growing name and has decided that Carignan and Cinsault can very well go with Cabernet Sauvignon, and that's exactly what she's decided to do with the Divergent. And I like the results. Very different wine. And you can kind of pick up the little hints of each of the different ones. The Carignan, the Cinsault, of course, very light wines, and then that seam of Cabernet Sauvignon offsetting them. The combination, it's unique, it's certainly unorthodox, but I think it's come through very nicely indeed. And I'd like to see how this ages. This is only, what, a 2016. I think another few years of all of those little bits just melding together a little, and you're going to come up with something that is very nice indeed. It's already lovely. It's already a great addition to the unique collection of wine they have here at Montegray Independents. And I think if the Chenin was certainly outstanding, this will be the wine that will grab a lot of attention just by virtue of the fact that it's something quite adventurous, quite playful, and quite exotic in the winemaking space. And that's what you get if you come here. Michael and Rose have done a terrific job in the wine industry. Michael, until recently, one of the trustees of the Cape Wine Auction and the chairman of Wines of South Africa. He's now moved on to assorted other adventures, but he's very passionate about wine. Rose just as much so, and their little spot here in Stellenbosch celebrates the very best of some of the smaller and more unusual names and varieties, and in this case, combinations that you might not get otherwise. So next time you're in and about Stellenbosch, you need to save water, so drink wine instead. Come through to Montegray Independent, try it out. It's well worth a visit, lovely spot. Tell Rose we sent you, and tell her that you saw the wine on Dan Really Likes Wine and you'd love to give it a try. Believe me, it's worth a visit. Cheers.